Yes, Chimamanda C. Let's see that.
Distinguished Nigerian author, speaker, and advocate Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie unveiled her first ever children's book titled Mama's Sleeping Scarf in a momentous event on December 29th at the Alliance Française in Lagos, Nigeria. The occasion, titled Christmas Magic with Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie, transcended the ordinary, drawing notable dignitaries and luminaries to delve into the profound significance of literature and early childhood education in Nigeria. Dignitaries at the event included former President Olusegun Obasanjo, the former Anambra State Governor and Labour Party presidential candidate Peter Obi, former Minister of Education Obi Ezekwesili, Pastor Itwa Igodalo, and Nigerian businessman Mr. Hakeem Bello Osage. Internationally renowned for her compelling novels such as Purple Hibiscus, Half a Yellow Sun, and Americana, Adichie has earned prestigious awards internationally, including the Orange Prize for Fiction and the National Book Critics Circle Award for Fiction. Her foray into children's literature with Mama's Sleeping Scarf adds another layer to her multifaceted legacy. The event focused on how reading serves as a catalyst for intellectual growth, imbuing language with greater depth, weight, and nuance, and refining articulation.
One of the things that I find worrying now about this country is how our ability to think critically just seems to be in massive decline. And so people argue, but it's almost as though we've lost the ability to craft good arguments. And so instead we think the louder we are, then somehow the better our point is. But that's not true. And reading anything, and by the way, by reading I don't mean social media. I mean reading things that are actually well written, well punctuated, possibly longer than 5 pages. It really does help in thinking critically. And it doesn't matter what it is you're reading, fiction, non-fiction, history, it doesn't matter. It really does help you to start to think better. There's something about learning through reading that is different from learning through any other way. And I just find that it seems because we're doing less of that. If you go and read the newspapers in this country from the 1960s and early 1970s, it is so different from what we have today. The writing is different. The quality of the ideas is different. And so I keep wondering, what has changed? What has changed? And so I would like to ask that we all kind of collectively decide to make a difference. And it takes very small steps. So how about we go home and read 1 page of something? How about we decide that we're going to read to our children? Children love to be read to. And you cannot say, my child is not reading when you're not reading. I think it's unfair to blame children for not reading when you're not reading yourself. The quality of language. So you read newspapers here in this country, even in public discourse, and just the way that we use language is very troubling. And can I just use this opportunity to say, Nigerians, please stop saying asides that. It is so annoying.
Startling statistics from the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, UNESCO, reveal that Nigeria grapples with an alarming estimated 20 million out-of-school children, placing it alongside India and Pakistan as the nations with the highest numbers globally. On the International Day of Education, the UNICEF Nigeria representative, Christian Munduate, delivered a sobering revelation that 75% of Nigerian children aged 7 to 14 cannot read a simple sentence or solve a basic math problem. In response to this educational crisis, Chimamanda Adichie's Mama's Sleeping Scarf emerges as a beacon of change, emphasizing the urgent need to enhance the learning outcomes of Nigerian children.
Stories like Rapunzel, Hansel and Gretel.
Speaking at the event, former Vice President of Nigeria, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, underscored the critical significance of indigenous narratives within the realm of children's literature. Drawing from his own childhood experiences, Professor Osinbajo emphasized the profound impact of children seeing themselves authentically represented in the stories that they read.
Then I read a lot of Enid Blyton books, The first one I read was called The Rocking Down Mystery. 3 or 4 boys who, while on holidays, discovered a mysterious house with all sorts of unusual things going on in it. They became heroes because they found that it was a storehouse for smugglers. I must have read the book 20 times or more, until my dad, I think, bought us a whole pack of Enid Blyton books, the famous 5, Secret 7, and then later on the 5 Find Outers. But all these books were written by British, Nordic, or American writers, and one almost thought that exciting adventures only happened to children in distant lands, until my father's close friend and lawyer, Mr. Kola Onodipe, who was also an author of children's books, gave me a book called Eze Goes to School. It was written by Onwara Nzeku and someone else whose name I don't quite remember. The book was very relatable to me. Eze was 7, I was also about 7 at that time. He lived in a village, which was a new experience for me. I lived in Lagos, but the author brought the whole village experience to life. The ceremonies, the way people spoke, the poverty, Eze's father's death and funeral, his struggles to go to school, the disappointments from family members, and then how he eventually gets a scholarship and goes to school. It was such an immersive experience for me, and I never quite got away from it. Most of these books, in the midst of the entertainment, the excitement, the mysteries, teach huge values. That good will ultimately prevail over evil, the victory of courage and resilience over adversity, honor, trustworthiness, being a person of one's word, etc. Getting children to read good books early is possibly the most priceless thing one could ever do for a child.
Bella Disu, a distinguished philanthropist and children's author, graced the event with her insights, delving into the process of reimagining age-old folk tales for the contemporary child. In a compelling address, she illuminated the transformative power of storytelling in broadening the horizons of Nigerian youth and what they believe is possible.
What it was growing up listening to and watching, the adults in the room would know, the kids probably not, Storyland by Jimmy Sholanke, Tales by Moonlight on Sundays on NTA, those sort of form the seedlings of storytelling in me. And I thought it was important for me to contribute to how an early reading habit can be cultivated in children, because I know the impact that reading has had in my life.
So I'm able to obey Chimamanda on this.
Mr. Hakeem Bello Osage, chair of Metis Capital Partners, shared his compelling journey at the event, unveiling the profound impact that the simple act of reading had on shaping the formidable figure he is today.
My memory of my childhood was that reading for boys was certainly not cool. Boys were meant to jump up and down through windows, up trees, collect mangoes, fight, play with catapults, do all of such things. But the last thing you're supposed to do as a young boy was to read. And if you spent a lot of time reading in primary school, you were lucky if your nickname was Encyclo. More likely, your nickname was Bookworm, and that was not a compliment. If you continued reading in secondary school, you would come up and make contact with a lady who would say, "So Kim, you like to read." And that was certainly not a compliment or a matter that attracted any attention whatsoever. Reading for boys was something that was effeminate. It was something that serious boys did not do. Girls read, and they read Mallory Towers, St. Clair's, and all those Enid Blyton books, which I stole from my dear sister and read myself. And they also read true romance and true love stories as well. But I was very lucky that I had a father who was a great believer in books. And so my father surrounded me with books, primarily with encyclopedias. And so the 26 volumes of the American Encyclopedia, the 20 volumes of the British Encyclopedia surrounded my bedroom. And he said to me, Kim, start reading A and read through all those volumes. Anything that interests you, just read. If it's boring, move to the next chapter. And that is why now I'm an expert on aardvark, which was the first section of A in the American Encyclopedia. And I can tell you that an aardvark is an animal that is descended from the elephants and specializes in eating ants. I'd like you to know that my reading after that went on to more thoughtful and practical matters. But I'm very grateful to my father for instilling in me a love for reading, because it made me very curious, it made me understand things, it gave me a sense of adventure, it meant that I had a sense of England, I had a sense of other African countries, because I experienced all of these through books. And I think as a result of that, I have become a much better person for all of that. And therefore, anything that puts in children a love for reading, in my view, makes you a better human being, a more thoughtful person, and a better professional.
Former President Olusegun Obasanjo, a prolific author himself, with a literary repertoire comprising of at least 17 books, including a captivating collection of tales on the tortoise, folk tales, graced the occasion with his profound insights. The former president emphasized the importance of narrating our own stories and history in an ever-evolving global landscape. President Olusegun Obasanjo eloquently underscored the importance of cultural authenticity.
Does reading matter? Of course it does. The former vice president talked about he starting to read at about age of 6. And we have a young lady here who wrote her first book at the age of 10. At the age of 10, I haven't gone to school. So how can you blame me for not reading at the age of 10? But we had something in place of book and reading. We had folklores, moonlight tales with elders in the village, which a good book or the idea or the idea of reading is really meant to be. Build you up as a human being with good attributes, good characteristics, and then, of course, to be able to live life that will be of service to humanity and of service to God. And we had that. In fact, like you, Chimamanda, I've written a book on for children. It's a volume of 12 stories about the tortoise, because that was the main stories we had when we were growing up. If you are going to be a good leader, you must be a ferocious reader. I want to talk a little bit about it, in particular about one issue, which I'm also trying to get people to write along with me about. Stories. Whether fiction stories or story that of events that have happened can build and can destroy. Depends on how you put them. But who among us here will say slave trade is not something that happened? Anybody? But then, now we are having a situation developing in America where they are teaching their children in their schools that slave trade is a fiction, that it did not happen, that the black people went into America looking for the green pasture, the same way that the white men and women went to America. But that is not true. But that is not only written, it's now being taught, and people are reading it. The danger in that is that 50 years from now, I will be gone. But then, the history, the story of slave trade will have been perverted.
At the heart of this extraordinary event was the Nigerian child and the pressing challenges within the education system. Following the book launch, former Minister of Education Obi Ezekwesili shed light on the critical state of education in Nigeria.
We actually are struggling, not just in Nigeria, but across the continent. I love data. I'm known for saying that in God I trust. Every other person must come with their data. And so in terms of data, 9 out of every 10 children on our continent are not achieving minimum proficiency level in literacy and numeracy. Now that's a blighter, because it means that these are children that already have lost the start of the lifelong skills that they would require. And so what to do? Besides having to tackle the 20 million children that are out of school, we now have children who are in school but really not learning anything. And that's terrible, because it means that investment into basic education is not generating the kind of return that we need. So we must fix it. Fixing it means that there has to be that political urgency. The leaders of the continent must take charge. That's why I'm excited that the AU has decided that 2024 would be the year of education. That's the start-off point. But it's not sufficient. You have to have the political leaders understand the data as it connects foundational literacy and numeracy to solving the problem of skills, jobs, productivity, competitiveness. If they can't connect all of these, then what would happen is that education will become a priority that is not just in word, but in deed.
In a setting that seamlessly blended intimacy, elevation, and global sophistication, the launch of Mama's Sleeping Scarf was an evening that left an indelible mark on all its fortunate attendees. The occasion wasn't just a book launch, it was a symphony of intellect, grace, and a shared commitment to shaping a future where the transformative power of storytelling becomes an integral part of every Nigerian child's journey.
Maybe the most important thing is how, the sense of knowing who you are and also being authentic, like being genuine, being a genuine person in the world. And I think also just striving to do well and to do good, which I think are two very different things. I'm also very proudly Nigerian, very unapologetically Nigerian when I'm sort of in the world stage. And so I hope that if it brings any kind of illumination of Nigerian life for people outside the country, that makes me happy.
Adichie has not only crafted a legacy, but has become a beacon, illuminating the path forwards for a brighter, more educated future. The magic of the evening was not merely seasonal. It echoed the timeless resonance of Adichie's accomplishments and her transformative role in shaping the cultural and educational landscape of her nation, Nigeria. Adesu Agiwa Osage for Arise News.